is not fun in terms of dealing with that. So I am going to share my screen. I will bring this up. It's a portion share. I'll bring up the presentation. And I know what I did. I want to remove the spotlight. Slideshow from the beginning. That's a weird thing right there. I don't know why that's doing that, but there we go.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah, that's better. I mean,
Okay, it looks a little funky on my end, but there you go. That's better.
yeah, no. I don't know what it was. I had the spotlight up there. So anyway, we'll, we'll just start it up, and as those come joining in, they come joining in. But I don't want to hold it up. And like I said, it's our last one of the 2020. We're saying goodbye, like everybody else, trying to get rid of 2020 here. So this is Thirsty for Knowledge Thursdays. It is a weekly webinar series. It's brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. And we just want to make sure that you've jumped onto the right flight for this evening. And what we're talking about now is New Year's resolutions. Essentially, how to set and stick to those goals. We know this is the time of the year. Everybody starts to think about doing resolutions. Everybody starts to plan for it. We get all hyped up about it. And then, come the middle of February, basically we lose all momentum and we just fail at that point. So we don't want to see that happen to anybody. So the idea here is we're going to give you some ideas, some tips, some tricks on how to do that. One of the things with the flight this evening, just a quick pre-flight checklist. The microphones are all muted. Cameras can be off. That's not a problem for us because it doesn't affect the recording here. If you do have questions, there is a chat box. Do like you to use the chat box should that come up. And I'll bring my co-pilot in a second who will introduce himself, but he's here to keep me on pace. He's also here to check the chat box if any questions do come up, because sometimes I lose that when I get focused on just trying to fly this plane and get everything done here. So with that, I'll introduce us, your pilots for tonight's flight. I am Tom Alessi. I'm the president of the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. In my other hat, I am an investment advisor. I've been doing that for more than now in my 21st year as an investment advisor. And what that really means is that I act as a fiduciary when dealing with any of my clients' investments or giving any type of advice. My co-pilot, as I had mentioned, is Craig Richardson. Craig, why don't you come on and introduce yourself?
Sure. So Craig Richardson. I'm a vice president of Aries Foundation. I've been in the financial services industry for about 16 years, and I specialize in working with families and small businesses to help them put together comprehensive plans and have a better relationship with their money.
Terrific, and I appreciate it. And like I said, Craig is here to make sure we stay on time, get this flight in the scheduled time format, and also to answer any questions that might pop up or anything in the chat box. As I mentioned, this is brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. You can visit us at ariesfoundation.org. Our mission statement is we try to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. For us, the foundation behind Aries, the point really is that we believe that financial wellness is a contact sport. And we mean that literally. There needs to be guidance and engagement that goes along. There are hundreds of apps and web tools and calculators out there. The problem is most people don't know how to use them, don't use them, and basically just ignore all of that because they need somebody there to help them. There needs to be one-on-one to make that work. And that was the impetus behind launching the Foundation for Financial Education. That's why we did it. And again, like I said, you can visit ariesfoundation.org, learn a little bit more about us and our message. Quick little disclosure here. This presentation is meant to be purely educational. The information that we provide to everybody, we share it on our website, we share it on our YouTube channel. We just ask that if you're going to do the same, if you're going to share it, if you're going to use it, that you use it just for purely educational purposes. The Aries Foundation for Financial Education, Inc. is a nonprofit, and it is not affiliated with any broker-dealer or securities-related business. It is not a registered investment advisor. Aries Foundation, Craig and I stress to everybody that if you ever have any questions, whether that's a tax, legal, or financial aspect, that you seek out the help of a professional to ask those questions. Now, this is a fun one for me because there are drinks on this flight. We call this Think with a Drink because we like to be relaxed. We take the information that we give to everybody very, very seriously. We just don't take ourselves too seriously. So we like you to be more relaxed. We can't think of a better way than to have a cold, refreshing beverage while you're listening along to us. And mine for the fun this evening is my birthday is early in December, and my girls gave me what is sort of an Advent type calendar, basically 24 individually wrapped beers that I'm supposed to be opening on a daily basis. And so for the purposes here, I don't know what today's is. So I'm opening it right now, and I'm going to find out what it is I'm drinking. I am drinking, it's Night Shift. Santilli. Nice. Nice Santilli from Night Shift Brewing. Very good choice by the girls. Craig, what are you drinking this evening?
I am drinking something from Treehouse. I am drinking a peach tart.
A peach tart. My goodness.
I know how much you like fruit beers. So
yeah, I don't know that that's something I would be drinking on a day like today, but whatever gets to you. And for those of you out there, if you don't imbibe or can't imbibe, certainly say, hopefully you have something good, but, grab something cold and just relax. And we're going to go through all of this. Skål.
Oh.
Well, that was a good choice by the girls. Nice. I'll have to let them know. Okay, the agenda for this evening. We're going to go through basically the resolution conundrum, what happens, why we sort of set ourselves up to fail, sort of the science and idea behind making good goals. And then, one of the things I was saying to everybody about being wicked smart, right? So what SMART really means, there's a specific acronym for it and the steps that go along with that. The tips and tricks that work to sort of help you with that. Things, people, places, and other stuff to avoid that trip you up. It's a major reward, why you can benefit yourself and why that's a good thing to do. And then getting back up again, not beating yourself up too much. And so as we slide into this, right, so let's talk about the conundrum, which is really the 10 most popular sort of choices that are out there. If we were doing, what's that show, right? Family Feud, survey says, right? Number one choice, right? So when you look at the top 10, basically, it's exercise more or lose weight, right? One and the same sort of thing. Get organized, learn a new skill or hobby, live life to the fullest, quit smoking. That's always a big one for the smokers out there. Save more, spend less, take a vacation, spend more time with family, and focus on spiritual growth. So those are the sort of the top 10. And the reason we say it's the conundrum is these tend to roll over. And one of the tips that we're going to talk about later on is the fact that, don't keep trying to do the same one over again, or don't get yourself caught up in these big, broad basket type of goals. Some of the things that we'll talk about with you and sort of stress with everybody is getting very specific, but making it something that matters to you. Don't just do it because everybody else is doing it or everybody says this is what you should do, right? Craig, we talk about this when we get into the whole values-based thing. It's what really matters to you ultimately from the planning point of view.
I think number 9 kind of happened by circumstance this year, though.
Yeah, right. We all got sort of left with that. Now it's sort of the other way around, right? I don't want to see my family now.
Now I want the vacation.
Yeah, but only for myself, right? I want to get away from everybody.
Exactly.
Right. All right. So, you're setting yourself up to fail. And it was funny. I was going through this with Craig the other day when we were talking about this, that, the phrasing there is a goal without a plan is delusion, and a plan without execution is just a waste of time. I mean, essentially what it says is that for everybody who writes out New Year's resolutions, the reality is that less than half of them actually follow through on it. The number is like 46% of people actually follow through on it. But that's with people who have written down their resolutions, their goals, what they want to achieve. The number, if you just say it out loud and just don't write it down or don't make it relevant to you, and we'll talk about that in a little bit with how that works, the number drops dramatically. It's like less than 5% of the people who do that, who don't actually write it down, who don't have specific numbers, actually achieve it. Which, when you do it out, it's just like any of this. And Craig and I talk to people about planning all the time. It sort of goes hand in hand with that. Like, it's one thing to say, gee, I want to, save more money or put stuff away. But unless you've got a specific goal or specific way of doing that, and actually a plan in place, then, like the saying says, it's just a waste of time. You're not going to get there. Craig, anything to add to that? I want to take a drink.
Yeah, I think it's like you were just saying, if you really want, one thing they were saying too is, you can keep your goals to yourself. Sometimes it's good to share your goal with somebody as well. It cements it, it makes it real. So if you're telling somebody, if I was going to tell you, if I want to lose 20 pounds, maybe I tell you, hey, I'm losing 20 pounds. Then maybe when I show up at the office and have a Snicker bar in my hand, you may remind me, hey, I thought you said you want to lose 20 pounds.
What are you doing with those Twinkies?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, and we'll talk about that. That is one of the things that's definitely a tip, right? That's one of the, we'll come back to that. That's something that goes over and over as a way of doing that, of sort of, it's twofold. That's accountability, but it's also, finding somebody who can help you or that you feel comfortable enough bouncing some of that. But let's face it, some resolutions are very, very personal. Mm-hmm. Some resolutions, like you said, it might be, hey, I'm just trying to exercise more, or I want to get out and walk every day type of thing. Not really that personal. Certainly I can share that with people in terms of what I'm doing. So it's those type of things. And making good goals, right, is the problem with goals is they tend to be big numbers, big broad band things. And so I like this where it says, I'm not goals, they're casual promises, right? This is something that I'm doing to myself. I'm under no legal obligation to fulfill that promise, but it's a promise I'm making to myself, where it's not this like goal has this whole big, stick in the ground, like I've got to achieve this, or, my life is over type of thing. And it's sort of crushing, saying that though, another saying that I sort of like to go with that, which, the problem with not having a goal is that you can spend your life running up and down the field and never score. Right. So you can just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And we talk about that, and I know that, fundamentally everybody tries to attribute it to Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That Einstein didn't say it, just, let the world know that, for anybody who ever quotes Einstein for that. It was not his. It was actually somebody else who said it. But the idea is, you have to make changes. And we'll talk about that and some of the ways and some of the things that you want to do in terms of making those changes, but don't do it in such a way where it feels like it's this monumental obligation, I guess is really what I'm trying to say with that.
Well, actually, the other thing too, you got to realize is, why are you making something a goal? So if you're saying, why do I want to lose 20 pounds? Well, because I feel peer pressure to lose 20 pounds, or is it because you want to be in a healthier state? Sometimes, you don't achieve the goal because the motivation to achieve the goal isn't there. It's a casual goal. Like you said, I'm under no obligation to fulfill this contract. Sometimes you see people reaching these goals, it's like, oh, they had a health issue. All of a sudden they've dropped 40 pounds. Right. They've had a financial issue, and all of a sudden they're able to, pay off a significant debt. So sometimes it's about the motivation for the goal, and why is it important to you is what really helps you achieve it. And to keep that in your mind the entire time.
Absolutely. Right. And that's a big part of it, right? That whole, like you said, peer pressure, that whole idea of it's got to be relevant. It's got to be something that's important to me. It's got to be a reason I'm doing it, not just doing it to say, hey, I'm doing this, because right. You're never going to tether to it, really, is what's going to happen in terms of going through that.
Yep.
So, and then we talked about the wicked smart thing, as far as going through that. But smart is very, there are acronym for this and stuff behind it, right? So when you look at the S is specific. And that means that you've got to truly have, like we said, it's got to be written down. It's got to be something that you can actually have to say, like Craig was talking about, I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, that's specific. I want to lose 20 pounds. And we'll talk about how the rest of the SMART works to that acronym in terms of making that happen. But that's one part of it, right? So it's got to be, it can't just be, hey, I want to lose weight, because there's nothing that's going to tether you to losing weight. There's an issue with that. So it's you've got to be specific. The better and more of a number that you have with that, the more definition that goes along with it, the better it is. And then M is measurable, right? Because you want to be able to track it. You want to have progress to it. You want to feel like I'm making goals. So if the case was I want to lose 20 pounds, if that's in the whole year, then we'd be breaking it down. And what do I need to lose every month, right? I got to lose, 1.66 pounds every month, so that by the end of the year, I've lost 20.
That translates into how much cake?
Huh?
That translates into how much cake per pound?
How much cake? Well, that's how much cake you can't eat. How much? We'll get to that part of it. That's the stuff to avoid when we get to the avoidance part of this. But the idea is you want to have it so that there can be measurable parts to this and increments to get you to it, because that's the only way that it's going to work. We do this with folks all the time when we talk about debt. Debt works the same way. When you're trying to pay down debt, you've got to have it in little amounts, little parts that will do this in terms of making it so that you can attain it and get there. And that's the next part, which is that it's attainable, right? It needs to be realistic. Like Craig could say, Craig, I'm going to keep coming back with the 20 pounds thing since you threw it out, and it's just a number in terms of going through that. But if it's hey, I want to lose 20 pounds in January, well, that's not going to be attainable, right? You're probably not going to be able to do that. Could you do it by March or April? Sure, if you really set yourself to it and went through it, but it's got to be in a situation where it's at least realistic enough that you could set up and a change, because otherwise that's the whole, you're setting yourself up to fail by trying to get too big of a number.
Well, it's also, Tom, the small victories on the way, right?
Correct.
So you say, I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, your first goal may be, I want to lose 2. And then I lose 4, so you just kind of incrementally get to that. I mean, let's take the Patriots, for instance, right? They don't say, I want to win the Super Bowl. They go, I want to win the next game. Just want to win the next game. I want to score 50 points. I want to get the next first down. So you start breaking it down to what it becomes a game of inches. I just want to move the ball forward. And so you set yourself up for a series of small victories that help you get to that ultimate goal.
Correct. And again, that just backs up to the same thing I talked about with debt, right? That's how we talk about dealing with debt. It's the same way. Take care of those smaller numbers, because it makes it becomes that feeling of, I got something off my plate. I've now, I made a hurdle. I've got there, and the R is for relevant, right? Because we talked about this, it really has to matter. It's got to align with you, right? It's something that you literally are attached to, that you're tethered to, something that feels like it matters to you. As Craig said, if it's the, hey, I'm doing it just because everybody else is doing it, or everybody says this is what you should do for a resolution, it's not going to last. It's just not going to handle it. That's why the whole thing with joining a gym. It's great if you want to exercise and you want to join a gym to do that. Granted, now COVID, it's a different animal, but that's what normally happens. But you've got to have a specific, okay, it's important to me. I want to get healthier. This is why I want to get healthier. This is why that means something to me. So this is why I'm going to go through that.
Yeah, and sometimes you can set that goal, like I want to lose 20 pounds, wrap it around some other goal, like I want to run a 5K. Or if I run a 5K, maybe I want to do a half marathon, or I want to do a Spartan challenge, or some kind of goal that way, or I want to do a triathlon. You know, it doesn't have some way to have a goal to reach up to do something with it.
Right. And so, and just to bring that back, like the idea there of attainable, like, hey, guy like me trying to run a triathlon is not going to work, right?
Well,
But
5K, right?
correct. So, the little increments, if I wanted to do it, if it was important to me, I could build in the steps to get there to, do this, go swimming, take the bike out, do those type of things to build up to the point where I could feel I could measure into the challenge. That's how you would do it. And then the last one, the T is time, right? There has to be a target date on it. There's got to be a deadline. One of the things that we've talked to everybody about anytime we talk about any type of goals, any type of planning, is always a deadline. Because if you don't put a deadline on it, open-ended just doesn't work. And that's why Craig was talking about, like, hey, 20 pounds, but I want to lose 2. Maybe that's in the month of January. And there's the time bound is going through it, that you're building these steps up to go along, right? That's the idea behind SMART, is that you use each of these steps together to help you with the goals. And
too is when you are trying to achieve a goal, it's not always a straight line, right? I mean, sometimes you have the steps along the way.
Yeah, no. And we'll talk about that, that's some of that, hey, not beating yourself up and, and different ways to go through that and look at it. And, and so, when you're dealing with SMART, the idea is, to sort of set yourself up with that, the template would look something like this, I will, and let's just use Craig's, I will lose 20 pounds by December of 2021. I know I'm making progress because I will have lost, 6 pounds by April 1st, of 2021, that type of thing. That's how that works. That's what SMART is all about. And it really is, from a psychological standpoint, trying to get that buy-in, this is writing it down, because you got to write it down, like we talked about. It can't just be up in the air. It's got to be written down. It's got to be something that means something to you, and it's got to be there. And if you don't, it's just never going to work. Like I said, a goal without a plan is delusion, right? It just, it doesn't work.
It becomes a dream, not a goal.
Right.
And I want you to work on that wicked smart thing so you can get into that Sam Adams commercial, okay?
Huh?
I want you to work on your wicked smart accent so you can get into the Sam Adams commercial.
Yeah, I know. I can't handle it. I tried. All right, so moving on. So tips and tricks, some things that help with this, right? So one of the things we talked about is being realistic, right? Realize, as we said, if for me, it might be trying to run a 5K, not trying to do a marathon, not trying to do a triathlon type of thing, right? Building up, that would be a goal that might be within my reach, that would be realistic for me. You got to outline the plan. You've got to come up with, here's how I'm going to do it. Here's how I'm going to make it happen. This is what happens with most people when they join a gym, that they don't think about is, well, I'm going to join the gym because I know I'm going to go, every Tuesday morning or then every Thursday morning, and and life gets in the way, and there's no backup, and there's no side plan, and there's no other, well, gee, maybe you should go on Wednesday night and then, go Friday type of thing. There's no follow through on it with that.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you're going to make a goal or a casual promise, have a pros and cons list. Go back and forth on it. Make sure you know why. And this, the most important thing with it, is why it's important for you. Why does it matter to you? Because if it doesn't matter to you, as Craig said, it's never going to connect, right? Make it visible. You've got to write it down and put it someplace. Keep it right in front of you. Keep it, a post-it note on your desk, in your phone as part of your notes page, whatever it is, that's something that you see it on a regular basis. And then, like Craig said, talk about it.
Can you do it like a Post Malone thing and just put the goal on my face as a tattoo?
That's a different version of that. I think that would work for a long-term goal, but not for something that would be short-term. And you'd have to keep erasing it and going through that. But you want to be able to track it. right? We talked about this. We talked about it making sure that it was measurable, but you want to track it. You want to keep score essentially and go through it. The stick to it thing, that's, Craig sort of talked about it a little bit with the, not, two steps forward, one step back. Like you're going to have downturns, you're going to have missteps. Everybody does. You can't let the misstep or a backslide throw you off. If you're trying to lose weight, look, the cake comes, right? It's the holidays, it's football, it's crazy, things going on. You're going to backslide. Don't get you, we'll talk about that in a second with, what happens there in terms of going through it. It's always try to keep moving forward. Just tell yourself, I'm going to keep moving forward. Okay, I had a downturn, I had a backslide, I'm going to move forward. And like Craig said, be flexible because this stuff, who knows, right? We ran into a quarantine this year. We might run into another quarantine. You never know what's going to happen. So you got to make it, be able to twist and turn a little bit with that. And the last one there, I can't emphasize enough, right? If you're going to make a resolution, this is something that you absolutely have to want. It's got to connect to you on a very, very personal, very, like we call them, core belief level. This has to be something that's at your core that matters to you. If you're just doing it for just doing it, it's never going to work.
The other thing, give you a little bit of hope there, like the stick to it part.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I'm not exactly sure on the days, but I believe it's 30. If you trying to change a habit and you change a habit and do the same thing every day for 30 days, it starts to form a habit. But now it becomes easier to do it. So
yeah, yes and no. I mean, I understand what you're saying in terms of going through that, and yeah, it's 21 days and go through that.
That 21 days.
Yeah, the problem with it is some of the stuff that we're talking about when we're dealing with changes, right? Change is hard. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this stuff has been ingrained into you for years and years and years.
Thank you for taking away hope. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to, again, it's being flexible and we'll talk about it with ways to come back and, how to combat this. But that's the reality. That's the conundrum. That's why we set ourselves up to fail, because we're trying to change behavior that at its core has been with us for a long, long time. And we're trying to do it in a short period of time. It doesn't work that way. And yes, they say that, hey, if you do this over and over and over the next 21 to 30 days, that you'll develop into that habit, into it. The reality is it takes longer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the fundamental start of it. You get used to doing it and the behavioral change goes along with it. And Correct. You stop doing the old behavior is what happens.
Mm-hmm. And
that's how that all adapts and trying to go through it. So yes, you can, take that mantra and go forward with it. But a lot of times with like smoking, that's something that's been, ingrained to somebody who's a smoker for, their whole lifetime. It's very, very difficult to like have that, and stop.
Well, addictive chemicals make that more difficult, I guess.
Right.
Right.
And speaking of that, right, let's talk about that, which is some of those things to avoid as you're going through this, right? So that's one of the things here, like, I joke with Craig. Craig is Mr. Positivity. So that's Craig is always on the positive side of things. Craig is always looking at the positive. He helps other people out. He's always being very, very positive with everything. So, for him, it's sort of easy to avoid that negativity. For a lot of us, though, we get dragged into it, right? So you've got to learn how to sort of push that aside and not get dragged into it. And this is why we talk about, having it be a core, something that really matters to you, because it's very easy to get dragged. Oh, why would you do that? Oh, don't bother with that. You don't need to do that. The other is being unrealistic. Like if you're unrealistic with your goals, that you're just setting yourself up to fail. You're not going to hit it. And again, go ahead.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. Like, so if you want
40
pounds, but I want to do it by eating cupcakes,
right?
Realistic, right?
Yeah, and that's the same thing with the guidelines and no commitment, right? If you're Well, yeah, I'd like to lose, like Craig's, I'm going back to the 20 pounds. I'd like to lose 20 pounds, but, I'm not really thinking about it. And I might step on a scale, next month type of thing and not really have a clue in terms of what's going on. So without that, you're not really fundamentally putting yourself in a place to do it. One of the things to avoid, I
That's
say
easy now.
people, but I mean people from the concept of negative influence. We talked about, hey, it's something to have somebody that you're comfortable, that you can tell your resolutions to, maybe use them as a sounding board, or hey, look, and I'm making strides in what I'm trying to do. But if it's somebody who's going to be negative, or somebody who's going to say, why would you do that, or what the heck are you doing, or you can never do that, you got to avoid them because they're going to just drag you down. That's the negativity in there. You
Well,
know,
and that's the most people too. The issue is most people are jealous of other people's success. So as you start doing better, they go, hey, good job, but do they really mean it? Because they're just looking at what they wanted to do and didn't do. So you
right.
got to push that to the side of, when you're starting getting a little pushback, it means you're doing a good job.
Absolutely. In places, right? So if you're, like Craig said, if I'm trying to lose weight, maybe the cupcake store is not the best place for me to be wandering into. Same thing with if I'm trying to cut down on my imbibing, certainly walking into a bar is not really a good thing. So that's just a fundamental of, thinking about what you're trying to do. And the last one is stuff, right? Things, anything that's going to be a little bit more of a derailment to whatever the goal is that you've set for yourself, you got to realize it's going to happen. You're going to walk into it and you're going to find yourself being tempted or falling off the path. And most people, once they fall off the path, it's very difficult to get back on, is what happens. So the next one, and Craig asked for the lampshade to be put in there because I was using the refrain of it's a major reward.
Wow.
It's at that time of the year, right? So Christmas Story, and everybody, has probably seen the movie at this point. But really, what we're talking about is uh, rewarding yourself, right? Motivation is a very, very strong key, and gets us amped up and going. The problem is, like I said, by mid-February, we usually run out of gas. And so if we can build in small goals that can be achieved along the way, like Craig said, maybe it's, hey, I got to a point, you know, let's go off the weight loss. Let's go to maybe it's reading. Maybe you want to read more in 2021. We're all stuck inside, maybe it's, hey, I want to read I want to read more books than I have been, or I want to read more. So my reward for that will be, well, hey, maybe I can rent a movie if I read 4 books type of thing, right? The trade-off there, the small screen versus reading, those type of things where I'm doing okay with it. Maybe if I'm trying to lose weight, maybe I got one day I can have that cupcake because I hit the goal and I've got what I like to call fat day. I got my fat day in and I can deal with that. But it should tie in to the main goal, right? It should be a reward for it. If the goal is to take the family vacation, right? So, and Craig was telling the story the other day with an individual that the client that he has, and you can, Craig, if you can just bring that up again about the.
So what this one client I had did is, some people will go to vacation and they'll just put on a credit card and they're paying the vacation back, which is difficult because now you're paying interest on something you did 2 or 3 years ago. What she would do is she would actually save money. Every time she hit $5,000 in savings, whenever that was, whether it took her a year or 3 years to achieve it, she would take a vacation. So for her, that was her reward for saving the money and putting it away. Then when she came back, she had no bills. She got to enjoy the vacation. Then she started all over again. So she gets to take a guilt-free vacation as a reward for herself.
Right. And that's sort of that's a very step forward in terms of that. I'm saving towards the goal. And then my reward for hitting that is to take the vacation. But
Yep.
similar passive can be done, right? It's as I'm building up the increments, I'm saving to get to that point. I'm not going to spend money
Mhm.
until I achieve or have X amount put away. One of the things that we have stressed in everybody, we've been saying it since May, basically, and if you've seen or heard any of our webinars, you've heard us say it over and over again. The number one thing that everybody should be doing right now is putting money into that emergency reserve, savings into the bank. You should have at least 6, if not 8 weeks of expenses in the bank. I don't care what else you're doing for savings, retirement accounts, anything else, all that stuff, not to say table it to the side, but should be set aside until that at least 6 or 8 week bucket is filled for your expenses in case the pandemic comes back, in case we roll back further, in case the quarantine happens and we shut down again. You've got 6 to 8 weeks of expenses in the bank. That should be the goal, so that when you hit that, now it's I can start saving for something else, education, vacation, retirement, whatever the case may be, but you've got to get that saved first.
The other thing, Tom, too, is when you're talking about motivation, sometimes it's good to use a buddy system, right? Like you were saying earlier, if you have somebody who has a similar goal, and some people I know are motivated by competition.
Yeah.
And that could
I
be,
think talking about me, that's an inside joke. I'm a very competitive soul.
so, sometimes that's a fun way to achieve a goal that you're trying to achieve.
Right.
So it's really about what's going to motivate you and keep you on track. So there's no right or wrong for anybody. It's just knowing yourself and knowing what's going to get you there.
Absolutely. And so in that segues right into, getting up off the mat is how I phrase it, right? The backslide, that it's going to happen, right? You're going to get derailed. You're going to fall off the path, whatever, however you want to do it, or say it. And so one of the first things is realize that it's going to happen. Don't beat yourself up about it. One of the biggest things that happens for most people is like, oh, I overindulged or I overate or whatever the case may be. And next thing you know, it's like, well, I'm giving up. Don't beat yourself up. It's nature of it. Like I said, some of this stuff has been ingrained into you for most of your lifetime. You're trying to change it in a short period of time. You're going to have problems. And you should learn and adapt from that. Okay, I know I can't. I walk past the cupcake store, I'm going to go in, right? It's just the nature of the beast. I'm going to walk in there and smell the cupcake. I'm probably going to have one, So, but one of the things we mentioned before was that avoiding past failures. And I mean that to say, gee, my goal was I wanted to lose 20 pounds. I didn't lose any weight whatsoever. So my goal for this year, I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, you're setting yourself up because you've already seen that it's happened in the past. And part of that problem is that your brain is stepping in the way. Your brain is now telling you you're not going to do it. You're not going to make that happen because you failed in the past. So it might take on a different goal, something that could be similar. And that could be I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to go out and, walk every day type of thing, which will lead to getting healthier, which will hopefully lead to losing weight and can be added on as another part of it. But you're not setting yourself up where your brain is already telling you, well, you tried to do this the last 2 years and you failed miserably. You're just going to fail again.
Well, can I go the other way and say my goal is going to be to gain 20 pounds?
You can, that's I always like to say that's the Nate Newton thing. For those of you who don't know, Nate Newton used to be a guard with the Dallas Cowboys who, they always talk about football players and when they get out that, they're going to get healthier. Not Nate Newton. His resolution was when he gets out of football, I'm going to get fat. I'm going to get real fat. That was his whole thing. So yes, it can be a goal. So, in the case of Nate Newton, that was the goal. I'm going to be real fat.
But I achieve something, and that's a positive, right?
Yeah. You want to keep a journal, right? So this is just having it in writing. All of the studies, everything tells you that writing a goal down, putting it in writing, just putting pen to paper, just doing that makes it concrete. It connects it more. It makes it real. And by doing that and keeping a journal and just, whether it's once a week, once a month, whatever the case may be, but coming back to it and physically taking the time to actually write down and make notes or, what happened, what was good, what was bad, what went on, it helps. It tethers you to the goal and it helps you get through it all. And then Craig just went through the whole thing about a goal buddy and, the whole, whether it's somebody who's there to uplift, Mr. Positivity, or they're somebody to compete against because that's how that's the motivation that comes with it. But having somebody that you can, be in line with, or who's doing something similar, or maybe their resolution has nothing to do with yours, but you're both, having a conversation about it and touching in and checking in with each other, it helps. And it will help you from wandering off the path and staying lost and getting back on the path for whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And that's really what this is all about, trying to help you figure out how to get there. One of the things we had said to everybody is, we just recently put this together, that we're going to send out to everybody, whether you're on the webinar with us or just if you registered, we're going to send it out. But it's 10 ways to finish what you started, because that's really what this is about. It's about that goal planning, goal setting, and then making sure that if you put this in as a goal, what are some of the things that you can do to make sure that you finish that? So for everybody out there, if you registered for it, you're going to get a copy of it. We put it together and we'll send it out to everybody. This is Craig and I in our regular lives. Those are there. We've got custom Brady jerseys for those of you who don't know. When we're out and about, we're at a lot of conferences, we're at a lot of fundraisers. We tend to do it in the jerseys because it's fun for us, and they are custom. Granted, they're number 12, so we have to look at for 2021, maybe waiting to see who the next quarterback will be and what number we want to get from there in terms of going through with it. But we'll try to figure that out. For now, whenever we do something, we're still in the number 12 jerseys. We do make an offer to everybody that if you ever have a question, need help, we're here. That's what we do. Ask us. We're going to try to help with you. Like I said, the whole idea behind Aries Foundation for Financial Education is trying to help everybody have a better relationship with their money. And one of the simplest ways to do that is to get a handle on what you're spending and what you're trying to save. And I know it's basic and it sounds basic, but for most people out there, there's a gap between those two things, and making sure that you have a handle on that is the best way to start. And then if it's a debt reduction that you're trying to do, we can help you be more efficient with that. That's the whole idea behind the premise and what we're trying to do. What's on tap? We keep the Think with the Drink going. So it's a happy holidays to everybody. It's 2020. We want to end the year and get rid of this year and start a new one and hopefully start fresh. And so we are going to come back, Think with a Drink. New year, we'll have a new time. We decided to move it from 4:30 to 6:30 in 2021. And we're going to start up on the 14th with the state of the financial markets. We'll see where we shake out for the end of this year, what it looks like going for next year. Craig and I will do a little bit, might have somebody come in, a guest, one of the portfolio managers or an economist to go along with that, give us some insight in terms of where they see everything headed in 2021. On the 21st, we want to do pre-retiree checklist. This is, one of the things for every retiree out there is they don't understand that they're playing a game and the game has rules. And we'll go over what those rules are and what you should be aware of as you're getting closer to retirement. And then on the 28th, because our assistants had asked us to do this, we're going to do reducing debt. They're college students, so that's why they had this as an issue. How to reduce debt and save more is really what we're going to do on the 28th. Craig, any questions out there in the box?
No, once again, we've done such a fabulous job that we've answered everybody's questions.
All right, if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot them into the chat box right now. Otherwise, I'm coming in just about at the time. We try to do these in about 45 minutes. We don't want to take too much of everybody's time.
Right on time.
Yeah, right on time. I know. It's the last one of the year. You figure I finally got it to a point where I'm getting good at it, right? But if you ever have any questions, you can reach us. It's info@ariesfoundation.org. Direct phone number 617-431-5045. Again, visit the site, ariesfoundation.org. You can check us out. You can see the replays, see the events, organizations that we support, we feel very closely with, we work very closely with, trying to help out and do some things for them. But on that note, I am gonna stop the share and say a very safe, very healthy, and happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you.